The world below rushed toward them. Then, impact. Everything went white, then black. Silence followed. The storm from the stars had only begun, and somewhere in the distance, a new voice whispered, "Human, it is your turn now." The choice of the human. When Ethan opened his eyes again, everything was still. He was lying on soft grass, the sky above painted with morning light. His head throbbed, and every breath felt heavy. The last thing he remembered was falling through the clouds and the blinding flash. He sat up slowly, looking around. They had landed in a wide valley, surrounded by tall mountains and silver rivers that shimmered in the distance. The air smelled clean, almost untouched. For a moment, it felt peaceful, too peaceful. Then he saw Lyra, lying a few feet away, and Tao beside her, unconscious but breathing. Ethan crawled to them, his hands shaking. "Lyra, hey, wake up," he said softly. She stirred, opening her eyes weakly. "Are we safe?" she whispered. Ethan looked around, scanning the hills. "For now," he said, "but I don't know for how long." Tao began to move, a faint golden light pulsing from his chest. Lyra placed her hand over it, whispering something in her language. The light calmed, fading into soft warmth. Ethan frowned. "What's happening to him?" Lyra sighed, her face full of worry. "The connection to the core is growing stronger. He is changing." Ethan sat beside her, his voice low. "The old ones told me I have to choose my path. What did they mean?" Lyra turned toward him, her eyes serious and sad. "You have already begun to change too," she said. "When you entered the light, it marked you. The ship saw your heart, your choice to protect instead of destroy. You carry part of its energy now." Ethan shook his head. "I'm just a man. I'm no hero, no chosen one." Lyra smiled softly. "That is what makes you different. The universe does not need heroes. It needs those who still care." Before Ethan could answer, the ground trembled beneath them. A strange vibration moved through the valley, low and powerful. Tao suddenly sat up, his eyes glowing bright gold. "Something is coming," he whispered. "Something big." Ethan stood quickly, looking to the sky. Dark shapes were forming above the mountains, swirling like smoke. The air grew cold. A deep hum filled the valley, the same sound he heard when the hunters first came, but this time it was stronger. Lyra's face turned pale. "The storm," she said. "It has found us." From the clouds above, a huge shadow began to descend. Not a ship, something larger, alive and endless. It moved like a creature made of darkness and fire. Its voice rolled through the air like thunder. "Return the light," it said, "or this world will fall." Ethan felt a sharp pain in his chest, like the air had turned to stone. He looked at Lyra, but she was staring at Tao, tears in her eyes. "He's calling for the light inside him," she whispered, "the energy that belongs to the stars." Ethan gritted his teeth. "If we give it to him, what happens?" Lyra's voice broke. "Then Tao dies." The shadow above roared, shaking the valley. Trees bent, rocks split, and the rivers began to boil. Ethan stepped forward, his rifle useless in his hand. He looked up at the monster and shouted, "You can't have him." The voice laughed. Deep, cruel, endless. "You are nothing," it said. "A fragile shell of flesh." Ethan's body trembled, but something inside him began to burn. A blue light flickered across his arms, spreading through his veins like fire. Lyra gasped. "The mark of the ship," she whispered. "It awakened in you." Ethan's eyes glowed faintly, his voice steady. "Then let's see what this mark can do." The shadow roared again, sending waves of dark energy toward them. Ethan stepped forward, raising his hand. The air exploded with light. Blue and gold clashed in the sky, tearing clouds apart. The valley shook, and for a moment, everything disappeared in the blinding glow. The last stand. The wind howled across the valley, carrying the smell of smoke and rain. Ethan stood at the edge of a cliff, watching the sky burn red. Dark clouds twisted like living things, and lightning flashed in strange colors. The storm from the stars had arrived, and it was unlike anything Earth had ever seen. Behind him, Lyra and Tao stood near a circle of glowing stones. The symbols on the ground pulsed with energy, blue and gold mixing together. Lyra's hands shook as she tried to steady the flow. "The barrier won't hold for long," she said. Ethan turned toward her, his voice calm but firm. "Then we make it hold, whatever it takes." He could feel the mark burning on his arm. The light from it pulsed in time with his heartbeat. It gave him strength, but it also carried a weight. A reminder of the choice he had made. He had returned not just as a man, but as something between human and starfire. A deep rumble shook the ground. From the clouds above, enormous shapes began to emerge. Creatures made of shadow and fire, their eyes burning with red light. They moved like waves, endless and slow. Lyra whispered, "The Reapers." Her voice trembled. "They're here." Ethan gripped his rifle. Though he knew bullets meant nothing now, he looked at the glowing stones. "If this circle can protect us, can it fight back?" Lyra nodded slightly. "It can, but it needs power. Energy from both worlds, from me, from Tau, and from you." Ethan stepped forward without hesitation. "Tell me what to do," he said. Lyra reached out her hand. "Join the circle. When the storm touches the barrier, release the mark. But be careful. Too much will consume you." Ethan smiled faintly. "Wouldn't be the first time I've done something stupid to save someone." They joined hands. Tau stood between them, his golden eyes glowing brighter than ever. The circle of stones blazed with light. The ground trembled as waves of energy spread outward. For a moment, the valley looked like a sea of stars. Then the storm struck. The sky cracked open, and a wall of darkness slammed against the barrier. Thunder roared like the voice of a god. Ethan screamed as the mark on his arm exploded with blue light. Energy surged through him, through Lyra, through Tau. Their voices mixed with the sound of the storm, echoing across the valley. The Reapers clawed at the barrier, their shapes twisting and roaring. Each one that touched the light burned away, but more kept coming, endless, unstoppable. Lyra's strength began to fade, her glow dimmed, her body trembling. "I can't hold much longer," she whispered. Ethan gritted his teeth. "Yes, you can," he said. "You're not alone." He closed his eyes and focused on the mark. It pulsed faster, brighter, hotter. Memories flashed in his mind. His cabin, the quiet nights, the lonely fire. Then Tau's laughter, Lyra's eyes, the promise he made. He poured everything he had into the light, every memory, every feeling, every ounce of humanity. The barrier exploded outward. A wave of energy shot through the storm, tearing through the Reapers. They screamed as the light burned them away. The clouds cracked apart, revealing the stars beyond. For a brief moment, the sky turned white, then silence. Ethan fell to his knees, gasping. Smoke rose from his arms, the mark fading dimly. Lyra crawled toward him, her face pale. "You did it," she whispered. "You stopped them." Ethan looked at her and shook his head weakly. "No," he said. "It's not over yet." Above them, a single dark shape still moved through the clouds, larger than all the others. Its voice rolled through the valley like thunder. "You think light can end me, but I was born from it." Ethan forced himself to stand. His eyes glowed faintly. He looked up at the final shadow and said quietly, "Then I'll show you what human light really means." The mark on his arm flared one last time. Blue fire surrounded him, and as the final creature descended, Ethan stepped forward into the storm.
The awakening. When Ethan opened his eyes, the world was quiet and strange. A soft blue light floated around him like mist in slow motion. He blinked, trying to remember what had happened. The last thing he saw was Lyra's face and the explosion of light. Now everything felt calm, too calm, like time had stopped. He looked around. The chamber was still there, but the crystal pillars had changed. They no longer glowed softly. Instead, they pulsed with energy like beating hearts. Each pulse sent a wave of warmth through the air, and in the center of the room, Tau stood, glowing brighter than ever. "Lyra," Ethan called softly. She was lying nearby, eyes closed but breathing. He crawled to her side and touched her shoulder. She stirred, her eyes slowly opening, shining faintly. "What happened?" he asked, his voice low. Lyra looked toward her son and whispered. The chamber responded to him. It woke something ancient. Ethan stood, staring at Tau. The boy was surrounded by floating lights that moved around him like stars. His small hands were lifted slightly, and his face looked peaceful. Lyra whispered, "He is connecting to the core. This world once knew our kind. They left behind memories, energy, and knowledge. Now the core recognizes him as its own." Ethan frowned. He wanted to believe her, but part of his human mind kept fighting the idea. Yet what he saw was real, too real to deny. Then, suddenly, Tau gasped and collapsed. The lights faded at once, and silence filled the chamber again. Ethan rushed forward, catching him before he hit the ground. The boy's body felt warm, almost burning, but his eyes were open, glowing faintly gold. Lyra touched her son's forehead. "He carries the key now," she whispered. The knowledge of the core. Ethan asked, what does that mean? Lyra looked at him, her voice trembling. It means the hunters will not stop. He holds what th. EY have searched for across worlds. A sound echoed through the tunnel, deep and metallic. The machines were close again, their red eyes cutting through the dark. Ethan's instincts took over. He picked up Tao and turned to Lyra. We have to move, he said. Lyra nodded, her strength returning. She placed her hands on the wall, and the silver symbols began to shift. A new path opened behind the chamber, narrow but glowing with faint blue light. They ran through it. The sound of metal footsteps grew louder. Behind them, sparks flew as one of the hunters cut through the stone wall. Ethan fired a shot, the bullet bouncing uselessly off the creature's armor. Keep going, he shouted. The passage twisted sharply, opening into another cavern. In the center stood a stone platform with strange markings. Lyra rushed forward, placing her palm on the markings. The ground shook, and the platform began to rise slowly. A bright circle of light appeared beneath it. Ethan looked down. There was nothing below, only an endless glow. Trust me, Lyra said. Step on it. He hesitated for only a moment, then stepped onto the platform with her and Tao. As soon as he did, the light flared upward, blinding and pure. The platform moved upward fast. The sound of the hunters faded below, replaced by a humming that felt alive. Ethan held onto Tao tightly as they rose higher and higher through the light, and then, in a sudden burst, the platform stopped. The light faded, revealing the night sky above them. They were standing in the middle of an ancient field, miles from the cave. Lyra looked around, her face both relieved and fearful. We are safe for now, she said. Ethan looked at the horizon, and froze. Far in the distance, above the trees, a dark shape moved across the stars. A massive ship, silent and endless, blocking part of the sky. He whispered, they found us again. Lyra's voice was calm but cold. No, she said, that is not them, that is something older, something that just woke up. The ground trembled under their feet. The stars flickered for a moment.
The night visitor. It was a cold and lonely night. The wind howled through the empty streets, and the small town seemed half asleep. Inside a little wooden house, a man named Ethan Cross sat near the fire, staring into the flames. He had lived alone for many years, far from the noise of the city, far from everyone. People said he liked peace, but the truth was, he was tired of losing people. That night, something strange happened. A faint sound came from outside, a sound that didn't belong to the forest or the wind. It was soft at first, like a whisper, then stronger. A cry. Ethan stood up, heart beating fast. He reached for his old flashlight and stepped outside. The air was colder than before. Mist rolled across the ground, covering his boots. He moved carefully toward the sound, his breath forming white clouds in the dark. And then, through the fog, he saw them. A woman. No, not a woman, not exactly. Her skin shimmered faintly under the moonlight, pale blue with silver lines running across it. Her eyes glowed softly, and in her arms she held a small child, trembling. Ethan froze, unsure if he was dreaming. The woman looked scared, her lips moving, but her voice weak. Please, she whispered, help us. Ethan didn't ask questions. He just nodded and helped her inside. He gave them a blanket, some warm soup, and tried not to stare too much. The little boy watched him with wide golden eyes, not human eyes, but full of fear and trust. Ethan's hands shook as he poured water into a cup. He had seen strange things during his army days, but never this. Still, something in his heart told him they were not enemies. When the woman spoke again, her voice was soft and broken. My name is Lyra. This is my son Tao. We have nowhere to go. Ethan sat down across from them. Are you from around here? He asked carefully. Lyra looked away. Not from this world, she said, and Ethan felt his skin go cold. She told him their ship had crashed in the nearby forest. They had been running from someone or something. Tao was sick, and she had no way to help him. Ethan listened in silence, trying to understand. It sounded impossible, but the fear in her eyes was real. He looked at the small boy again, shivering under the blanket. Ethan remembered another night, long ago, when he had lost his own family in an accident. The same helplessness, the same cold silence. He stood up, made his decision. You can stay here for tonight, he said. Just one night. Lyra nodded, her eyes shining with tears. Thank you, she whispered. We will not forget this. Ethan gave a small smile, though his heart was uneasy. Something in his gut told him this night would change everything. Outside, the wind grew stronger, and far away, deep in the forest, red lights flashed between the trees. Something was searching, moving closer. Ethan didn't know it yet, but the strangers he let into his home would never leave, and the quiet life he once had would soon turn into something far greater, something that would test the limits of what it means to be human.
Between worlds, there was no up or down, no sky or ground, only endless light. Ethan floated in a sea of colors that shifted like dreams. Blue, gold, and silver lights moved around him like living stars. He felt weightless, yet his heart beat strong and clear. For a moment, he wondered if he had died. A voice echoed softly through the brightness. "You are not dead, human, you are in the space between." Ethan turned, searching for the source. A figure appeared, made of light, tall and calm. Its voice was gentle but filled with power. "You carry the mark of the ship, that mark binds you to the energy of life itself." Ethan frowned. "I didn't ask for this," he said, his voice trembling. The figure stepped closer. "Few ever do," it said, "but choice brought you here. When you stood against the darkness, you chose to protect, not destroy." The mark responded to that choice. Ethan looked at his hands. They glowed faintly, lines of blue light tracing his skin. He could feel warmth flowing through him, steady and alive. "Where are Lyra and Tao?" he asked quickly. "They live," the voice replied, "but danger still surrounds them. The storm has not ended, it waits, feeding on fear and despair." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Then send me back," he said. The figure's light flickered slightly, almost like it was smiling. "Not yet," it said. "First, you must understand what you are." The light around Ethan shifted, and suddenly he saw visions. Images of galaxies being born, worlds filled with life, and the same darkness swallowing them one by one. "This," said the voice, "is the hunger that spreads through the stars. It devours knowledge, memory, and light." It was born from a world that lost its compassion, where every living thing turned cold. The old ones tried to stop it, but their power without emotion could not win. Ethan stared at the vision. "So what can I do that they could?" "Ldnt?" he asked. The voice glowed brighter. "You are human. Your kind is young, fragile, and imperfect, but you have something rare. The ability to feel beyond logic, to fight not for power, but for one another." That is what the mark responds to. Ethan closed his eyes. He saw Lyra's frightened face, Tao's glowing eyes, the burning sky above Earth. He remembered the loneliness of his cabin, the years of silence, and then the small voice of Tao saying, "It's okay, Mr. Ethan." A tear slipped down his cheek. Floating in the light like a tiny star, he whispered, "I just didn't want them to die." The voice replied softly, "And that is why you can live." The light around him began to pulse faster. "You are ready," it said, "but remember, the mark is not only power, it is connection. It will burn you if you use it without purpose." Ethan nodded slowly. "I understand," he said, though his heart still ached with fear. The figure raised its hand, and a doorway of golden fire opened before him. "Go," it said, "return to the world that still breathes. The storm is waiting, and the child will need you to finish what has begun." Ethan took a deep breath, stepping into the light. For a second, everything turned silent again. Then he fell, fast and hard. He hit the ground with a jolt, air rushing from his lungs. Grass brushed against his hands. He looked up. The valley again. The sky burned red at the edges. Lyra was kneeling beside Tao, holding his small hand as blue sparks danced around them. When she saw Ethan, her eyes widened in shock. "Ethan," she whispered, "you came back." He stood, his eyes glowing faintly with the same light as the mark. "Yeah," he said quietly, "and I'm not leaving again." Thunder rolled through the sky as shadows moved on the horizon. The storm was coming closer. Ethan clenched his fists. Whatever he was now, he knew one thing. This time, humanity would not run.
The secret beneath the earth. The cave was silent except for the soft drip of water from the roof. Ethan moved his flashlight slowly across the stone walls. Strange silver symbols covered them, twisting lines that seemed to move when the light touched them. Lyra stood near one of the walls, her hand glowing faintly as she traced the markings. Tao sat beside her, his small body wrapped in Ethan's old coat, eyes half closed. Ethan whispered, "What is this place?" Lyra didn't answer right away. Her eyes were distant, like she was seeing something far away in time. Finally, she spoke, her voice quiet. "This place is older than your world's history. My people came here long ago, when this planet was still young. We built sanctuaries like this, hidden deep underground." Ethan frowned. "You mean, there are more of these?" Lyra nodded. Most are gone now, buried or forgotten. But this one still remembers. Before Ethan could ask what she meant, the ground trembled slightly. A soft hum rose through the floor. The symbols on the walls began to glow brighter. Lyra took a step back, pulling Tao close. Ethan raised his rifle instinctively, though he knew bullets would not help here. The air shimmered, and suddenly a figure appeared in front of them. It wasn't solid, more like light shaped into form. It looked like a tall being with long arms and no face, its body made of flowing silver mist. Ethan froze, his finger tight on the trigger. Lyra bowed her head slightly. "It's a guardian," she whispered, "a memory of the ones who built this place." The figure spoke, its voice calm and deep, echoing like 1,000 whispers at once. "Why do you return, Lyra of the lost kind?" Lyra's eyes filled with tears. "I seek protection for my son," she said. "They hunt us across the stars." The figure turned slowly toward Ethan. "And you," it said, "a human, why do you walk with the fallen?" Ethan lowered his gun. He didn't know what to say. "I helped them," he said quietly. "They were cold, scared, and needed shelter." The silver figure tilted its head slightly. "Compassion," it said, "a rare strength among your kind. Perhaps that is why the bond still remains." The light around it dimmed, and a doorway opened in the stone wall. A faint blue glow came from within. "Enter," said the guardian. "But know this. Once you step inside, your life will never be the same." Lyra looked at Ethan, her face pale. "You don't have to come," she said softly. Ethan gave a small smile. "I didn't let you in just to leave you now." They walked through the doorway together. The passage led down into the earth, twisting like a tunnel carved by light. The walls pulsed gently, like the cave was breathing. At the end, they stepped into a wide chamber filled with crystal pillars. Each one shone with a soft blue glow. Tao reached out and touched one, and it lit up brighter. The whole room responded, humming with energy. Lyra gasped. "It's reacting to him," she said, "to his energy." Ethan looked at her in confusion. "What does that mean?" She turned to him slowly. "My son, he is not just one of us. He carries something ancient inside him, something the hunters want to control." Before Ethan could ask more, a loud sound echoed through the tunnel behind them. The hum of the machines had returned. Red light flickered at the far end of the corridor. Growing brighter, Ethan raised his rifle again, his heart pounding. "They found us," he said. Lyra grabbed Tao's hand, pulling him close. The crystal pillars began to vibrate, light racing across them like lightning. The air filled with a deep, rising tone. Lyra looked at Ethan, her eyes glowing brighter than ever. "Whatever happens," she whispered, "don't be afraid." The light exploded, filling the chamber in a blinding flash, and then everything went silent.
The red lights in the forest, the night was darker than before, the moon hid behind heavy clouds, and the forest outside Ethan's cabin whispered with strange sounds. He sat near the window, the old rifle resting beside him. Lyra and her son Tao were asleep on the couch, wrapped in blankets, their breathing soft and tired, but Ethan could not sleep. His mind kept replaying the moment he had seen those red lights between the trees. They were not from any car or plane, they moved too slowly, too smoothly. Like eyes searching through the dark, something was out there, and it was looking for them. He turned off the lamp, letting only the fire glow faintly. In the silence, he could hear a distant hum, low and deep. It vibrated through the walls like a faraway storm. Ethan's soldier instincts returned, the same feeling he used to get before danger came. He checked the window again, but the forest was quiet now, only the wind moved through the leaves. Suddenly, a small sound broke the silence. Tao was awake, his golden eyes glowing softly in the firelight. "Mr. Ethan," the boy whispered, "they are coming." Ethan turned, his heart pounding. "Who's coming?" he asked, but Tao didn't answer. He just looked toward the door, frightened. Before Ethan could move, the hum outside grew louder. The floor trembled slightly, glasses rattling on the table. Lyra sat up, fear flashing across her face. "They found us," she whispered, holding Tao close. Ethan grabbed his rifle, his voice calm but firm. "What are they?" he asked. Lyra shook her head. "Hunters," she said. "They follow my kind across worlds." Ethan opened the door a crack, the cold wind rushing in, and then he saw them. 3 figures moving through the mist, tall, metallic, with glowing red eyes and long, sharp limbs. They walked without sound, scanning the ground with beams of red light. Ethan's grip tightened on the rifle. He had seen drones and machines in war, But nothing like this. Lyra stood behind him, whispering words he didn't understand. Symbols glowed faintly across her hands, the air around her shimmered, forming a faint blue shield near the window. Tao hid under the blanket, trembling. Ethan whispered, "We can't fight them, not here." Lyra nodded, her face pale. "There's a cave north of the woods," she said. "If we reach it before dawn, they might lose our trail." Ethan didn't hesitate. He packed food, water, and his old flashlight into a bag. He helped Lyra wrap Tao in a coat and motioned toward the back door. They moved quickly through the snow, their breaths white in the air. Behind them, the red light scanned the cabin walls, slowly moving inside. The night swallowed them as they ran. Ethan led the way, guiding them through narrow forest paths only he knew. The hum grew fainter, but not gone. Once, he turned back and saw one of the machines rise into the air, its red eye sweeping the forest like a searching sun. They ducked behind a fallen tree, hearts racing. Lyra pressed her hand to Tao's forehead, whispering softly. The boy's glow dimmed, hiding them better in the dark. Minutes felt like hours. Finally, they reached a ridge where the ground dipped sharply. Below it, a dark opening yawned between two rocks, the cave Lyra had spoken of. They slid down carefully and entered the shadows. Inside, it was silent except for their breathing. Ethan lit his flashlight, revealing walls marked with strange silver patterns. Lyra touched them gently, her voice trembling. "My people once hid here," she said, "long ago, before humans walked these lands." Ethan stared at her, the truth slowly sinking in. He had thought they were just refugees, but this was something older, deeper. "Lyra," he said quietly, "what are you really?" She looked up, her eyes glowing brighter than before. Something your kind was never meant to find," she said. Outside, in the distance, the red light stopped moving. They had lost the trail, but only for now. Ethan felt a strange chill.
And somewhere beyond the clouds, a deep voice whispered through the wind, "The sky awakens." The night was no longer silent. The stars flickered like dying candles, and the huge dark ship floated above the clouds without a sound. Ethan stood frozen, his breath caught in his chest. He had seen aircrafts, war drones, and secret machines during his army years, but nothing like this. This ship felt alive. Its surface shimmered with blue and silver lines, moving like veins under skin. Lyra looked up at it, her face pale and serious. "That ship," she whispered. "It should not be here." Ethan turned to her. "You mean it's one of yours?" Lyra nodded slowly. "It belongs to the old ones. They were the first of my kind to visit this planet, long before humans ever built their first fire." Ethan frowned. "You said your people came here long ago. You mean, your people were here before us?" Lyra's eyes glowed faintly in the dark. "Yes. We planted the seeds of life here. Your world grew from what we left behind. But the old ones vanished. Their ships fell asleep beneath the stars, waiting for a signal." She looked toward Tao, who was sitting quietly. "That signal," she said softly, "came from him." Ethan's heart pounded. "You mean your son woke that thing up?" Lyra nodded. "When he connected to the core, his energy reached beyond this planet. The ship heard it, and now it has returned." Before Ethan could reply, the air began to hum. A beam of blue light descended from the ship, stretching all the way to the ground. It stopped only a few feet away, glowing like a doorway made of pure light. Lyra grabbed Tao's hand, her voice tense. "They are calling us." Ethan stepped closer, feeling the heat of the beam against his skin. "Who's calling?" he asked. "The ones who never left," she said. "The old ones." For a moment, no one moved. The beam pulsed, and a voice echoed faintly within. It, calm, deep, and ancient. Lyra of the lost kind, child of the core, and human of compassion. Enter. Ethan swallowed hard. He looked at Lyra. "If we step in there, we might never come back." Lyra nodded. "Maybe. But if we don't, they will find us anyway." Ethan looked down at Tao. The boy smiled weakly and said, "It's okay, Mr. Ethan. They won't hurt us." Something in his small voice made Ethan's fear fade a little. He took a deep breath and stepped into the light. The world changed at once. It felt like falling through water, yet breathing was easy. He saw shapes and lights moving around them, strange images, flashes of memories, cities made of silver towers, oceans filled with glowing creatures. Then everything cleared. They were standing inside the ship. The walls were alive with shifting colors. Every surface moved slowly, like the ship was breathing. Before them stood tall figures of pure light. They had no faces, but their presence was powerful and calm. One of them spoke, its voice echoing through the air. "You have awakened the legacy. The child carries the memory of our kind." Lyra bowed deeply. "We seek safety," she said. "The hunters pursue us across worlds." The figure turned its glowing gaze toward Ethan. "And the human?" it asked. Lyra hesitated, but Ethan spoke first. "I helped them because it was the right thing to do." The light around the figures shimmered. "Compassion again," said the voice. "It is always compassion that changes everything." The figures looked at Tao. "The child has joined with the core. He carries the key to the heart of this planet. It must be protected." Ethan stepped forward, his voice firm. "Protected from what?" The voice lowered, almost like a whisper of thunder. "From the storm coming through the stars." Lyra's eyes widened. "The hunters?" she asked. The light dimmed. "No," it said. "Something far worse. Outside." The ship trembled slightly. The clouds below swirled like waves. Ethan looked through the window and saw tiny red lights spreading across the horizon. The hunters had found them again.
The light of humanity, the sky was fire and shadow, the last of the reapers moved above the valley like a living storm, its body stretched across the clouds, swallowing light. Every roar shook the mountains, every breath turned the air cold. Ethan stood alone at the center of the valley, blue flames still flickered around him, faint but alive. His body ached, his strength fading, but his eyes burned with purpose. Behind him, Lyra held Tao in her arms, shielding the child from the dark wind. She called out, her voice breaking, "Ethan, you can't fight it alone." Ethan turned his head slightly, giving her a weak smile. "I'm not alone," he said softly. "I've got all of you right here." The mark on his arm began to glow again, brighter than before. It pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat, and for a moment, the air around him shimmered with golden dust, the same dust that had once covered the old one's ship. The connection between worlds was awakening. The great shadow roared again, its voice filled the air like thunder made of fear. "You cannot stop me, human, you are nothing, and your world will be forgotten." Ethan's voice was calm. "Maybe I am nothing," he said, "but even nothing can choose to stand." He raised his hands, blue light burst from the ground, spreading outward like water. The mark expanded across his chest, glowing like a living star. Lyra watched, tears streaming down her face. She whispered words in her language, words of courage and farewell. Tao opened his glowing eyes and reached toward Ethan. "Mr. Ethan," he said softly, "don't let the dark take you." Ethan smiled faintly. "I won't, kid, not while there's still light left to fight for." The Reaper struck, a beam of black energy tore through the sky. Ethan met it head-on, blue fire exploding from his body. The ground split open, rivers of light and shadow clashing in midair. Every second felt like eternity. The sound was beyond thunder, the air beyond heat. It was life against oblivion. Lyra fell to her knees, clutching Tao. The valley around them began to dissolve, grass turning to dust, mountains trembling, but through the chaos, a faint voice echoed. It was Ethan's, steady and human. "You said I was nothing, but nothing doesn't give up, nothing learns, nothing hopes, nothing loves. That's what makes us human. We fight even when we know we can't win." The mark flared, blue and gold light burst upward, piercing the clouds. The Reaper screamed as its body began to burn from within. Its dark form cracked open, spilling rivers of silver energy across the sky. The storm shattered, scattering into the stars. The whole world glowed for a single moment. Then silence. When the light faded, the valley was calm again. Soft rain fell, washing away the ash and fire. Lyra looked around, calling his name. "Ethan," she whispered. "Where are you?" But only the sound of rain answered. Then, from the far end of the field, a figure appeared, burned, weak, but alive. Ethan walked slowly toward them, each step heavy. Lyra ran to him, tears mixing with the rain. "You did it," she said. "You saved us." Ethan smiled faintly, his voice barely a whisper. "No, we did." Tao stood before him, his golden eyes soft. He reached out his small hand, touching Ethan's arm. The fading mark glowed one last time, then disappeared. Lyra looked up at the sky, clear now, filled with stars. "The storm is gone," she said quietly. Ethan nodded. "Yeah," he said, "but something tells me this is just the beginning." They stood together under the rain, three souls from different worlds, bound by one light. The old one's ship was gone, the hunters destroyed, but the memory of what happened would live on. Ethan looked at the horizon where dawn began to rise, and for the first time in years, he felt peace. A new sun touched the earth, its light warm and golden, human and alien alike would rebuild, and somewhere in the distant stars, a voice whispered softly, "This is what it means to be human." And this time, they were not alone. The storm from the stars, the great ship trembled as the red lights grew brighter on the horizon. Ethan stood by the glowing window, his heart heavy with unease. Below them, earth looked peaceful, forests, rivers, and small towns sleeping under moonlight. But above that peace, war was coming. He could feel it in the air, like the quiet before thunder. Lyra stood beside him, holding Tao close. Her eyes shone with worry and something else, sorrow. She looked older now, tired but strong. Ethan turned to her. "You said something worse is coming," he said. "What did they mean by that?" Before she could answer, the tall beings of light appeared again. Their presence filled the chamber with soft energy, like standing in the center of a storm yet feeling calm. The tallest figure spoke, its voice echoing softly. "The hunters are machines, created by minds that feared what they could not control, but behind them lies something deeper, a force that consumes both creation and memory." Ethan frowned. "You mean some kind of weapon?" The figure's light dimmed slightly. "No," it said, "it is a hunger, a shadow that devours worlds. It began where our kind once lived, and now it follows the trail of our children." Lyra's voice broke the silence. "The Void Reapers," she whispered. "I thought they were only myths." The figure turned its faceless gaze toward her. "They were myths once, but not anymore." Ethan clenched his fists. "So those things are heading here, to Earth?" "Yes," the voice replied. "The child's awakening called them." The signal from the core reached far beyond this system. Ethan looked at Tao, who sat quietly near the wall, glowing faintly like a small star. "He didn't mean to," Ethan said softly. "He's just a kid," the figure replied. "The core chooses who it will. Intent does not stop destiny." The ship shook again, harder. "It's time." The walls shimmered as alarms echoed through the air. Deep, rhythmic pulses. Lyra turned sharply toward the window. "The hunters," she said, "they've breached the upper atmosphere." Ethan grabbed his rifle. Though he knew it would do little good, he looked at the figures of light. "You said he must be protected," he shouted. "Then help us protect him." For a moment, the light beings were silent. Then the chamber changed. The walls pulled back like fabric, revealing a large circular room filled with strange pods and floating symbols. One of the beings pointed toward a raised platform. "This vessel is old, but its heart still beats," it said. "You can use it to escape the first wave." Lyra hesitated. "And you?" "We will hold them," the voice said, "until the time comes." Ethan lifted Tao in his arms and ran with Lyra toward the platform. The floor beneath them began to rise, glowing with white light. Energy surged through the air, humming like a storm ready to break. Outside, dozens of red ships appeared from the clouds, their beams cutting through the night. Explosions of color flashed across the sky as the great ship's shields flared blue. The old ones' voices echoed through the chamber one last time. "Go to the place where the rivers meet the mountains. There, the Earth's core will guide you, and the human must choose his path." Ethan shouted back, "What path?" But the light was already swallowing them. In a blinding flash, the platform shot upward, breaking through the ship's hull and into the cold night air. They soared over the clouds, wrapped in a cocoon of blue energy. Below them, the sky burned with war. The old one's ship fought the hunters, light against darkness, silence against rage. Lyra held Tao tightly, whispering words in a language Ethan didn't understand. He looked back and saw the ship collapsing, its glowing body breaking apart like falling stars. Then the light around them dimmed, and they fell. Wind roared past as they descended through the clouds. Ethan braced himself, holding on to Lyra and Tao.